Hello and welcome to the New York Farm Bureau's weekly news bite, bringing you the latest news from the New York State agriculture world.
Hi, I'm Steve Ammerman, Director of Communications for New York Farm Bureau. Welcome to New York Farm Bureau's News Bites. Today we wrap up our look at the Future of Agriculture Summit that we held in July. One of the topics of conversation was how to reach more urban lawmakers, most of which are naturally in New York City. The chairs of the two agriculture committees, Senator Michelle Hinchey and Assemblymember Donna Lupardo, spoke about how relationships matter when it comes to farmers making connections. New York Farm Bureau is a nonpartisan organization that advocates for farmers in Albany. This past session, Farm Bureau worked hard with lawmakers to secure what turned out to be the biggest agricultural investment made by the state in years, with funding going to support dozens of agricultural programs, including things for research, conservation, marketing, and so much more. We begin our conversation with Senator Hinchey, who represents the Northern Hudson Valley and the Catskills and rural parts of the capital region around Albany and Schenectady. She believes agriculture has a unique place at the state capitol.
One of the things that is so exciting to me about agriculture is it really is the industry. It's the sector that unites our entire state. It unites everybody. It's our upstate economies. It's our upstate businesses. And then it brings that need, the food need, to our downstate friends and neighbors, to our inner city, people who live in the inner cities across our state. Agriculture really is what unites us all together. And there's so much opportunity there. There's so much opportunity to support the agricultural industry and the agricultural economy, to support our small farms, our small and mid-sized family farms and the businesses, and then also make sure people really know where their food is coming from. That's something that's, I think, really missing. We've gotten so used to fast food and cheap food and not thinking about what that supply chain looks like, not thinking about where our food and our resources come from. Agriculture and sharing the stories of our farmers is something that really brings us all together, right? Making sure that we're supporting our businesses and our economies upstate, but that people, no matter where they live, what their background, what their means, what their zip code, their economic ability, they are still eating farm fresh, healthy food. That's an incredible story, and that's something that we have the opportunity here in New York to deliver. If we're supporting our farms and making sure that we're getting that product and those foods into our cities, we're making sure that everybody knows how important agriculture is. Internally in our conference, we've changed the name of the Agriculture Committee to the Agriculture and Food Committee to really connect the dots for everyone on what it is that we're talking about. And of course, agriculture is so much more than that. It's also craft beverage, it's even the clothes we wear, but really to connect that need for people. Because if agriculture is in your constituency, if you represent an urban district, you're not thinking about the agricultural economy because those are not the calls you're getting. And so changing the name for our committee and talking about it in a tangible production way and what the goods are has really changed, I think, the dynamic for understanding of what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about agriculture. And building those relationships with our members and with people even in the community who don't think about it just because it's not front of mind for them, but building those relationships with our farmers and having our farmers be able to tell their stories, be able to talk about why they're impacted by legislation, tell their stories about the incredible things they did in the pandemic, the way they stepped up and started delivering food for free, their surplus goods when their markets shut down, to be able to bring their food for free to food banks and food pantries, which was the beginning of the Nourish New York program. One of the best programs in our state's history started because farmers just wanted to do the right thing. It started because farmers wanted to feed people. They're in this business because they want to help their communities and they want to feed people. There is nothing more pure or more good than that sentiment, right? And so elevating those stories, talking about the incredible work that our agriculture community is doing for the community at large, and then talking about the things that are challenging, right? And the things that are standing in the way of them being able to scale that up, or being able to help more people or get more farm fresh local food into the New York City market or into bigger markets. We need to be talking about that in real time so that we can make sure that one, legislation that we pass is not inadvertently harming our agricultural economy, because that's not the point. That's not what anybody wants to do. Anything that comes forward, if there's legislation that comes forward that feels or could be, possibly negative to an agricultural business, the reason for that legislation isn't an anti-farming legislation. It's just that people are getting pressure from the environmental side or from the labor side. It's their constituents are calling them in support of an environmental bill, in support of a labor bill, and they're not getting calls in support of the agricultural community or in support of the agricultural perspective. That's really important. That's my job. That's the job in the legislature to elevate that. But no one is a better teacher than the farmer themselves to be able to really tell those stories about the impacts or about the situation that they're in. So building the bridges with community members, building the bridges with other legislators, both in the good times and in bad, to be able to have those trusting conversations to say, I understand you're getting a lot of calls on this one issue. Let me share with you tangibly how that impacts our business. Let me share with you tangibly how that impacts our land management. That's the stuff that can make people come back to the table and say, you know what, maybe it's a good premise, but we've got to make sure it works for all constituencies involved.
Assemblymember Donna Lupardo is from the Binghamton area and chairs the Agriculture Committee in her chamber. She doesn't have many farms in her district, but has taken a great interest in food and farming, and she too believes relationship building makes a difference, and the pandemic was evidence of this.
One of the reasons I was interested in chairing the Committee on Agriculture is because I was struck at the fact that most people don't understand what it takes to get food to market. And I wanted to help build relationships that were needed to improve understanding and awareness about the farm economy. I don't think people understand that it is a very critically important part of our New York State economy, that there are people involved whose livelihoods are very important, but also they're important to us, to our families, to our interest in local healthy foods. So I set upon a mission to raise that level of awareness. And as we were going down that track, the pandemic hit. And every weakness and every challenge that our farmers were facing became worse. But by the same token, there was a big silver lining that came up, which was that surplus food was purchased to go to needy food pantries in New York City, prompting New York City legislators to want to come upstate and meet those farmers who provided the food. And therein began a very heartfelt connection. And it was that type of connection and those types of stories that were shared through a variety of farm tours, which has elevated not only the awareness, but the overall sympathy for what farmers are going through. So yeah, there are numerous challenges. My colleagues are interested in learning more about those challenges and trying to turn those into positive opportunities for everyone involved. We have a legislative women's caucus, and it's made up of women from both parties and from the Senate and the Assembly. And we choose topics that we're going to focus on each session. And after pitching a variety of ideas, this group of women decided to prioritize agriculture as one of our top 3 items, along with childcare and education, which shows the level of interest that it would come up to that level. And as a result of that, during budget negotiations, they were very, very vocal and very supportive when the governor was interested in putting more support behind agriculture, when we wanted to add more funding for diversity in agriculture and new programs, and trying to protect the programs that she did not keep on budget. No one argued about it. $5 million, for example, went to meat processing. I can tell you for a fact, if those colleagues of mine had not come upstate and visited meat processing plants, met the people involved, understood the risk that we are facing when so much processing occurs in the Midwest, they never would have allowed $5 million to go to meat processing. They would have wanted to pilot into, a different program downstate. I think we can build on this. They didn't flinch when we wanted to help the state fairs, when we wanted to put in the resources that are needed. It was a wonderful feeling.
These conversations reinforce the importance of farmer engagement and why New York Farm Bureau members need to be involved in the legislative process, talking to their lawmakers and those outside of their districts. Good relationships are at the core of any successful venture. Well, that will do it for today's New York Farm Bureau News Bites. Thanks for listening to our conversations today. We hope you join us next week. And until then, remember to thank a farmer for all that they do.